Good day and welcome back to Elementary 72 Gaming. Now I'm back again with another Tower of God video, and I'm kicking off where I stopped in the last one. I finished off the first part of the hide and seek test, now hitting into the second part. But with this will also come a lot of secret pieces of the information. So if you are watching the anime and you don't want to know everything, then this is a good time for you to actually back off. And if you're reading the webtoon. I've already ruined a lot of the story for you, I know. But if you are reading at this point, I suggest you read through to episode 78 of the webtoon, and then come back and listen to this because this is going to knock off the last part. So here we go. So recapping the second part of the hide and seek test. So the first team loses because Kun helps the ranker actually steal the the badge or touch the badge in the hide and seek game. And then in the next game, it's now time for the team which includes Balm, Ho, and Rachel to play. Now, Balm, Ho, and Rachel play a massive part of this entire situation. So here we go into this test. Now, this test needs a little bit more detail as I go through. So the test starts with there being no clear leader within the group. A lot of people start fighting. One of the members of the team who ends up becoming a disciple of Rak, is named Peracure. He is one of those trying to take power. Then there's the fishermen who are trying to take power for themselves. And there's also Princess Enderossi Jahad, who jumps in eventually after they've been fighting for too long and just takes control instantly. There's nobody of good enough stature to take control. A light bearer would have been the perfect individual, but they didn't have anybody stepping up. So in the end, a fisherman took control, and she's a very powerful individual. So her authority really pulled it through for her. That's why she got everything her way. Now, moving from this part, things start to really fall apart really quickly because her strategy is for all of the fishermen to go together in a single group and split up at the point where they can start heading to the exits, and for the rest of them to actually just bundle together and delay the rancor. Now, her plan sounds plausible and doable, but the big problem with it is it's impossible to achieve. The rancor doesn't really have to follow that sequence. He can just show up and wipe them all out before they're halfway through the test. And that's the thing. So she sets up the test to go this way, and Quant is in a really bad mood because of his previous game. He was manipulated to win, and that's how he managed to win because some regulars helped him, and his pride is really badly hurt. So he wants to make sure that Kun doesn't get his way all the way from start to end. At this point, okay, wait, let's try and explain this here properly. At this point, Hut, who is one of the scouts, is a swordsman, is with two of the spear bearers, Paracule and one of his friends. And they decide they're going to put up a quick fight against the Rancor when he shows up by pulling off a strategy they're calling revolution. So Paracule's revolution idea is to have everybody face off against the Rancor so that their spear bearers can throw and pin down the Rancor's movements. And that's their whole idea. And they've already seen from the first test, because they got to see what happened, that that will not work. Now, when this is applied, the second team decides to go ahead with Enderossi's plan, and he decides to betray them basically. So in the middle of the test, he decides he's going to do it his way. And when he does this here, he actually betrays everybody little by little. So the first people to run into the Rancor is Huts, Paracule, and one of the other spear bearers. At this point, the fight turns a little bit ugly, and Huts decides to take on the Rancor. The Rancor realizes that Huts is way more skilled than he expected, and he was going to have some fun taking out his rage on Huts, because Huts has a lot of physical strength and he's quite a beast with that sword. And they fight for a little bit, and eventually Huts manages to do something absolutely phenomenal. He holds the Rancor in place for a few seconds. This was actually what the Spearbearer Revolution needed, to showcase their strength. However, the spear bearers had betrayed Hats and ran away. And when he realizes this, Quant says, "So this is another team full of traitors." And when he hears this, yeah, Hats is shocked because he didn't know there was any traitors on the other team. He thinks that they uh, functioned well together, and Hats is left there absolutely defeated. Now, with them was also a light bearer who helped a little bit with showing what was going on. And when everything was put together and all the information was given, they found out that those two ran away and they didn't know what they were up to. Now, Quant didn't catch up to the spear bearers. Instead, they ran back to the safety zone, or close to the safety zone, and they captured the whole team. And they decided they're going to force them to do the spear bearer revolution plan with them. So they tie up a whole lot of the members. They're holding them all hostage, and eventually we get to the part with the fishermen. They're all running in a single group till they can split. And when finally the Ranker pitched up, and the Rossi breaks the transmission through the lighthouse, so there's no transmission on what's going on. And she ends up fighting and injuring the fisherman real badly. But before that, we get an idea of what it takes to become a princess of Shahar. So when she was younger, she was part of this family from one of the great families who didn't have any heirs or powerful heirs to take up the rank of princess of Shahar. So what they did was they adopted children from the middle area of the tower where she lived, and they trained them. And they ranked them, and based on their rank, they got food. Those who were the highest rank had the best food. Those who were the lowest rank had stale bread. And you didn't even get to sit on the table, they got to sit on the floor and eat cold, stale bread. And eventually, she actually managed to climb up a little bit by beating one of the other girls. And when she did that, she realized if she took out all her competition, she could eat whatever she wanted. She wanted to taste the greater meals. So she took out everybody, she killed everybody, and got to the front of the table where she could eat anything she wanted. And that's how she managed to become a princess of Shahad. Now, she applied the same method to this test, but some things that she learned from speaking to Baum really shook her up at this point. So she's telling Baum that if he really wants to help that girl who he's climbing up the tower for, he is going to need to learn to do bad things. He needs to be a bad person to climb the tower. And she basically takes out the team in front of him, and he basically says, "No, I'm not going to follow your method. I will do things my way. I will fight for the ones that I love, and only those who get in my way will face my wrath. If they go too far, I will definitely stop them." And when he says this here, it really hurts Endeross's feelings because she's considered to be extremely gorgeous and sought after by men, and she has some type of attraction towards Balm already. And the other fishermen say, "Hey, look, she got dumped." Now, there was a joke in the stuff, as far as I can understand. And that really pisses her off and she hits the rest of the fishermen. She beats them up real badly and she steals one of their weapons. Now, one of those who were part of this test had an ignition weapon. It wasn't as high ranked as the Black March or Green April, but it was a very powerful ignition weapon called Namada. I'll explain about it later as we go up the story of the tower. But nonetheless, Namada is an ignition weapon which is very regular in its regular state. So she takes this weapon and she ends up moving along. Now, Balm actually saved her from one of the ignition strikes. And the thing about it is that ignition strike was so powerful it would have hurt Enderossi. But Balm just took it and kept walking. The fact that ignition uses Shinsu is the reason why he was able to do it. He has a magnificent resistance against Shinsu. So finally, he heads back down to the start area. Now, as I said, this here is where things get really complicated. Ho was in the same position as Baum, and he was really jealous of the natural talent that Baum had and the fact that he was more than likely to pass. And he needed Baum to stop climbing the tower so that he could stand a chance to climb the tower. So he knew that from the very start. He knew he was going to lose against Baum. And at this point, we get a little bit of a recap on what he's been through. So, at one stage, someone dropped a message at the bottom of his door that if he takes out Balm, he will then be able to he will then be able to climb the tower unabated, but he doesn't have the strength to take out Balm. So why doesn't he take out Rachel, whose name is pseudo Michelle Light at this point? Now, Rachel is also in on all of this. She is with the test supervisor who's actually trying to make sure that Balm fails the exam. They want him to remain behind on the test floor. Now, there's a lot behind this here. There's a ton of information that we're missing about all of this, but basically, they're manipulating a lot of it to get to their goal. Now, at this point, Balm is in the situation where he's in that test and he arrives to the bottom and he finds Ho with his knife to Rachel's neck. Basically, he's trying to kill Rachel. And the Ranker shows up as well. So now this is absolute chaos. The Ranker is there, Balm is there, Ho is there, and the Spearbearer Revolution is happening on the other side. And with all this chaos, the Ranker wants to get Ho off Rachel so that he doesn't allow Kun to get what he wanted. And Ho eventually starts walking back towards the safety zone, and as he's walking back towards it, the Ranker almost catches him. But the spear bearers throw their spears at just the right moment to give Ho a chance to fall back. This now makes it impossible. And Ho gives Balm a choice. If he fights the Ranker, he'll spare Rachel's life because he figures if he fights the Ranker, he's going to die. And at this point, Balm just goes for it. He's about to attack the Ranker. And the Ranker decides to give Balm a little flint of hope of saving the girl without fighting him. So he attacks him with the form of Shinsu. Remember, he's only allowed to use one bang in a method called reverse flow technique. Now, this will later become Balm's signature move, but basically he hits him with the Shinsu and he tells him, if you want to save the girl, you need to do this to him in order to save her. Now, as far as Quant is concerned, it took him 100 years to learn this technique. So 100 years is no short period in the tower. It's almost impossible to counter these techniques unless you have a lot of backup behind you. So he figures, you know what? I can give him this false hope. He's going to try. He's going to lose the girl, but there's nothing I can do about it. I just have to knock out all these other regulars. But before that happens, he leaves a threat. If anybody dies, I'll kill everybody here. So Ho knows that if he kills Rachel, he's dead. So at this point, Balm turns towards Ho, and Quant runs towards the Spearbearers in a Spearbearer Revolution plan. And as he starts moving in, he uses this technique. But while he's using this technique, he was a little bit slow at it. So Ho managed to stab the back of Rachel. And he actually pulls off this technique and he stops Ho for a few seconds. And when Ho drops to the floor, Ho starts screaming and ranting on about how much he hates Balm. Balm is given everything. He had to sacrifice everything. He had to watch all of his people die just to get the power that he has. And that's still nothing compared to what Balm has. It's not right that someone who doesn't have to sacrifice has so much. Someone who doesn't have to work for it naturally has all of this. And that's just the natural envy of someone who's talented. And when you hear his whole excuse, he then finally pulls the knife that he used to stab Rachel and stabs himself through the heart to die. Because he's trying to kill everybody so that nobody succeeds. And at this point, Enderossi shows up. And when Enderossi shows up, she says, Balm, you have two choices. You can sit here and try and look after Rachel, and if I get caught by the Ranker, then the game ends, but I'm going to put up a fight. Or you can help me and we can try and end this right now, and she might still achieve her dream and you will get to keep climbing the tower. At this point, he thinks about it carefully, and he's like, fine, I'm going to go and I'm going to side with Enderossi. I'm going to fight the Ranker. And he uses the reverse flow control on the Ranker, and you just hear Quant's commentary on it is like, these two are baby sharks. They're swimming with sardines at the moment, but one day they're going to be the ones eating all of these sardines. And they're really dangerous. He has to keep himself on his toes all the time. Because that reverse flow control may not be as powerful as a Ranker's, but it definitely affects Quant. So Quant is really scared of it. And Bam keeps using it on him. At this point, they realize just how talented he is. It's 100 years of work in a single moment. Not a single day, a single month, a single moment, 100 years of work. That's all it took for him to catch up to their level of skill. And that's how come Ho considers him to be a monster. Now, at this point, things have already fallen apart quite far. And finally, Quan thinks he won the match against Ender Rossi because he sneaks off her jacket where he saw red behind it because she said that's where her badge was. And in this very same moment, she uses her real inventory, which is a special type of weapons inventory, which is a special way of holding weapons for a fisherman, to steal the badge of Quan. But once she touches it, it's counted as a complete steal. And he's holding it and he's laughing and he's about to grab it. And she says, "What a shameful man you are holding my panties." And he looks at it and it's red underwear. And he is infuriated. And then she shows that she got her badge in the one hand and his badge in the other. And their team wins. At this point, medical aid rushes in and they pull everybody out of the arena who's injured. Ho is dead already because he stabbed himself through the heart. And Bam is actually mourning over Ho because he considered Ho to be his friend. Now, the thing about Bam is Bam only ever interacted with one person before coming in the tower, Rachel. Rachel was his everything. Rachel taught him how to speak, how to read, how to do anything and everything that he knows how to do. So Rachel was his everything, and he just witnessed his new friends, his new everythings. One of them die, one of them totally disappear from his life. Even if they betrayed him, it didn't matter to him. The feeling of friendship mattered more. So he mourned for this year, and Quan thinks to himself, it's so unbelievable that someone so talented and so powerful will mourn someone so insignificant to them and someone who actually betrayed them. And he's thinking how silly it is that this boy is going to pass. So finally, they come to the final exam, and the final exam is called the fishing exam. Basically, there's a lot to do with this exam, but I'm just going to break it down into two parts, just like I did with the other flows. So at this point, we already know that there's a lot of shenanigans going on. With Rachel, she's supposed to be killing Bam if she wants to keep climbing. And we find out at this point that Bam is an irregular because they fail Rachel. And basically, because she can't move, she's not well enough to take the final regular passing exam. So they end up going with a backup option of approaching the administrators. Now, if you go and watch my very first video explaining the tower, you'll find out that the administrators carried out the first exam. They have several conditions. The first condition is you have to approach the administrator, the guardian, and ask him for the exam. But in order to approach him, you must be an irregular. So you must come from the outside of the tower. You must open the tower on your own. And there's only two people in that room who could do it, and that's Rachel and Bam. And Bam is the one who ends up approaching and doing it. Rachel didn't even think of doing it, to say the least. And he finally meets with the administrator for the second time because on the floor, you meet with the administrator when you make a contract. When he makes a contract, the administrator passes a comment to him that this contract is more of a shackle to you than aid, and basically that's where it ends. Now, moving on from this is where things just go crazy. We find out that Rachel has still been trying to kill Bam, even though he's doing everything in his power to help her pass. She's still trying to kill him so she can keep climbing. Her permission to climb the tower is conditional on her actually defeating Bam or getting rid of Bam at this point. And Bam doesn't know this and she hasn't told Bam, and basically it's so complicated. And at this point, we find out that Han Sang Yu is part of this. He's the one who fed the information to their guide, and their guide is the one who fed the information to Ho so that he isn't directly interfering in the exam. And we find out that there's another organization called Pug involved in this whole situation. But we don't find this out now. We find this out in the last episode. But now I just gave the basics on what's about to happen. And in the next episode, I will explain the advancement exam. So catch you all then and have a good day.